Finishing up lunch, feel free to continue and eat. This is our current vendor for most of us. Es&S has supplied us with all of the automarks, I believe, and about half of the county's Eagles. I am an Es&S customer. I program the ballots, so that is my software. Mike and I have had several discussions in the past. He knows how I feel about automarks, and he is quite sympathetic. We are looking at, the nice thing about the automark and this ink cartridge is whatever machine that we go with in the future does not require the infrared $50 cartridge, so we can at least, if we keep them, the cost of the ink cartridge goes down because that ink cartridge is specific to the Eagles. And in order for the ballot to be read by the Eagle, it has to have that specific cartridge. So wherever we go from here, if we keep the automarks, that is a positive change and quite a savings. What we've done is we've given an hour and a half. We didn't get any pros and cons put on the last one here. I think we got, that half hour went too fast. We had you guys kind of introduce, we had the last companies introduce the product, and rather than giving a real lengthy demo, letting the clerks all get in a line and know what it's like to stand in line and vote, come up, test the product, and then as we come up with questions, we can get back and answer the questions as a group. When they are trying the machine, I would prefer that they hold their questions with you so that we can answer them as a group. Is that fair enough? Does that work with your agenda? Very good. All right. Well, here they are, the Mike and Gary show.
Thanks, Lori. Again, my name is Mike Overson. I'm with Es&S, and with me, Gary Weber. Gary is from our Rockford, Illinois office, and I've been lucky enough to get Gary to come up today. He's in charge of our software and firmware development in our Rockford office. And it's that very office that was responsible for coming up with the firmware for the Eagle. So today I'm going to show you our DS200. This is our latest precinct tabulator. Uses all of our technology. Currently we have about 15,000 of these out, including New York City, Miami-Dade, Orange County, Cuyahoga County, which includes Cleveland. And then we have 3 counties in Wisconsin where this is being used in Lincoln County, in Portage County, and Wood County. Some of the key differentiators between the DS200 and the previous system, the Eagle, is that the amount of memory, for example, is tremendous. This comes stamped with a 4 gigabyte USB drive compared to the memory pack, and this is expandable. We can expand it currently to an 8 gigabyte USB drive, as well as we have additional expansion ports. We have 5 different ports that you could put the USB drive, so it is expansionable. So in case elections change, and we know elections are constantly changing with new legislation, different scenarios that never have happened before can and do happen, running different types of elections. We found that as a go-forward platform, we don't want to have to change the platform when we can change the software. And by having that much memory to a system is not going to only meet today's needs, but needs well into the future. So the other big difference with this system compared to earlier generation systems are the read heads. This has a dual contact sensor. With the Eagles, there was a separate read head for each station on the ballot. So for a 3-column ballot, the Eagle had 4 upper read heads and 4 lower. This has a dual contact sensor that goes the length of the ballot. And with our newer software, we're able to go ahead and set the ballot up in both portrait and landscape modes. So we have the traditional ballot set up like this, but then we can also go to the landscape method like this. We can go up to 24 columns, 93 rows, so there's a lot of expansion. So as elections increase in size, this ballot can increase with it. Every once in a while there's something that happens that has never happened before. In 2010 in Minnesota, we had a district court race where we had 24 people filing for that office. Never had that many candidates for an office before. But this system has the flexibility to deal with those unexpected flukes that happen with elections. The other thing that the reads has, they're a visible light read head, so you can use just about any type of marking device except for highlighters. Black ballpoint pens, blue ballpoint pens, black markers, blue markers. The only thing that it has problems with are highlighters and green inks. Otherwise, it's very good at picking up marks. So that's a huge difference between your Eagles and this system, is the ability to pick up different types of marks. The other thing is that the access to those read heads, there's a cover directly over those read heads, so it's very easy to get at. In previous systems with the Eagle and our M100, you'd have to take the cover off in order to get access to them. Now it's very easy to get access to it. There's also an ultrasonic sensor, so that if you try to feed 2 ballots through it, the ultrasonic detector is going to see that there's 2 ballots in the ballot path and come up with a message. You'll notice that we have a large 12-inch screen. We went to the large screen so that we could have very clear, large instructions to the voter. And this is a touch screen, so the voter can actually touch the screen to operate the system. This is capable of up to 9 different languages. Currently in Wisconsin, the city of Milwaukee is the only jurisdiction that has 2 ballots, but that's something that could change in the future as our country changes. So right now, this is capable of 9 different languages. The languages that are applicable in the state, all the voter has to do is touch that language, and everything going forward is in that language. So that's a very nice feature. Everything is in an audit log on this. With an Eagle, you had a tape, and every time anything happened with an Eagle, it would print the tape. With this, you start out in the morning with a election definition that basically tells how the machine has been set up, the time, the firmware version, and then when you open the polls, it will automatically then print your zeros tape. And after it prints the zeros tape, that's it. It's not going to print anything more until the end of the night when you get your election results. Everything else is going to be displayed on the screen. So you don't go through a lot of paper tape with this system. And it records every action done on the machine, the time, the date, and what action occurred. And you can print this audit log. So this system meets all the 2005 standards. Every system that's sold has to go through state of Wisconsin certification, but we also have what is required from the state is an EAC, which is a federal certification. And this has gone through both the federal and the state certification. As well, we have gone through the state of Florida certification and the state of New York certification. So this has been a well-tested machine. And with 15,000 units out in the field, we have a good idea how these perform out in the field. The other thing that we have is the paper roll. This uses thermal paper, so there's no ribbons or cartridges that you need to have. It's a drop-in clamshell type of printer, so there's no core that you have to replace into the printer roll. The printer roll drops right in. The paper that we use lasts 22 months, so it meets the federal requirement for retaining election records. The ballots can be varied in length and in width. We can go 11 inches, 14, 17, and 19 inches long, and we can either go 8.5 or 4 1/4 inches wide. We use an 80-pound paper, which is quite a bit lighter and less expensive than the 110-pound index that the Eagle uses. So there's some cost savings there from switching to your Eagles to the newer systems. The other thing that I'd like to spend a little bit of time is about the capacity. This is also an imaging system, and we can run it in 3 different ways. We can image all ballots, that is, take a front and back picture of the ballot and save those. We can just take a picture of the ballots with write-ins, or we can just do no imaging and go with just the cast ballot records. On a 2 gigabyte hard drive, or not hard drive, but USB stick, we can put 6,000 images front and back ballots on there, plus all the cast ballot records. With just the cast ballot record, you can have 70,000 on a 2 gig stick. So a lot of capacity on that system. As far as voting the ballot, just like all precinct counters, the ballot can go in any of the 4 directions, backwards, forwards, upside down. Doesn't make any difference. The voter inserts their ballot into the system. It scans the ballot, and we have a public counter that will increment each time it's taken that ballot. And they can also then capture that image and store the image on that USB stick. So if there is a defective ballot, here I have a totally blank ballot. And if that ballot is fed in, it beeps to alert the voter that a ballot has been returned, and here it gives them 2 options, accept or return. So if they want to return the ballot, they just press return, the ballot comes back out. No votes detected on the ballot. If we have an overvoted ballot, in Wisconsin state law, we're required to return all overvoted ballots with the DS200. We have 3 different modes that we can set the DS200. We can set it to return all defective ballots. We can set it to put it in what we call query mode, where it can hold the ballot, and then the message comes up and allows the voter to go ahead then to make their option. In the meantime, the ballot is held inside the machine, so no one can see how that voter is voted. Or we can have all defective ballots accepted. So we have all 3 different methods that we can do. As far as the number of tapes are concerned, we can program the system to automatically generate as many copies as we need. So if you need 3 copies, we can have it generate 3 copies at the end of the night. Or if you push a button at the end screen, each time you push that button, it can also generate another tape. You can generate audit log tapes as well with the system. With our newer software that we refer to as electionware, we can even put macromedia movies on here. So for example, it will show a voter how to insert the ballot into the machine. There are different help screens that will be available as well with the system. So that's what having a large screen allows you to do. As far as overvoted ballots, we also have the option of showing what offices on that ballot have been overvoted, each one. So it will say the number and which ones have been overvoted on the system. The tabulator sits right on top of the ballot box inside the case. The tabulator weighs 20 pounds. The case weighs about 16 pounds. And the tabulator slides out, and you can transfer it to your precinct all set up, or if you just want to set it up without the tabulator, you can remove the tabulator by pushing this down and sliding the unit forward. The read path is only about 8 inches long, so unlike an eagle, you can never get a ballot stuck in the machine because it's either going to be showing in the front of the machine or coming out the back. With the eagle, it's possible to get a ballot stuck right inside the machine itself. It makes it very hard to access. So ease of access to the ballot is very good with the DS200. We have the main bin, we have the emergency bin at the very top that are locked. As far as processing absentee ballots, excuse me, not absentee, but write-in ballots, you can do the same process you do right now, where it's basically a manual process of going through the ballots, looking for voter intent ballots, and filling out your write-in sheets. We're looking in the future at being able to have the machine not only detect ballots where the voter didn't complete the oval, but also keep track of the write-ins and record the write-ins as well. So a lot of different features that we're looking at in the future adding to the system as well. As far as the use of this system with the Automark, as Ori was saying, we do use a different ink cartridge. Since this has visible light, we could use the standard ink cartridge, which is $30, versus the Jumanji ink cartridge, which is $45. In addition, since it's a lighter weight paper, the ballot goes through the AutoMark much easier, and we have an improved firmware that improves the ballot handling capabilities. We have fewer skewed ballots, fewer rejected ballots, so the improved firmware with the use of the ink cartridge makes a huge difference. Gary, anything that you want to add?
No, not in particular to 200. There is a question right there.
I do have a question. I apologize, I'm asking it now, but I have to leave in a few minutes.
Sure.
You had mentioned earlier that the machine's been well tested and is in New York and Cuyahoga County and Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that there were some problems in Cuyahoga County and in New York. And I was wondering if you could address those.
Sure. As far as the New York one, maybe Gary, you want to mention that?
You're referring to the Bronx
Yeah.
articles that came out?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's been, we sent a team up there and went through that unit with representatives from the Board of Elections and from the Bronx, and found that that unit, once it heated up, lost its calibration, and the images as it went through the scanner were distorted. That was an isolated case on that particular unit. The version of the DS200 in Cuyahoga, Cleveland, runs 3200, 3210 is what's the release certified in Wisconsin. This version that you have, Mike, is the 3200 Rev 3. Mm-hmm. 3200 Revision 3 is the version of firmware that we just got certified, federally certified by the EAC as a remedy to what was seen in Cuyahoga during their LNA testing. It had to do with mark detection on a ballot that went through the paper path in a very unstraight manner, skewed ballot as we refer to it. Mm-hmm. So we did look at that situation. We took it very serious as a company. Obviously, reading ballots correctly is what we're all about. And we did spend, my group, not only in Rockford but in Omaha, the firmware developers on this spent a good number of months this past winter working on the image processing, and went back through the federal certification process, and the EAC and Wiley Test Labs, who is the voting system test lab authority, approved the changes that we made to the system to remedy that situation. The system release as a whole is certified to what they call the 2002 voting system standards. Anything, though, that we change now in our systems has to be tested against the 2005, which is the current voting system standards. So all of those changes that we made went through the 05 testing, which is much more strenuous than the 02 was. So we think we've dealt with both of those situations.
Thanks.
And it's not unusual for new systems to kind of go through that initial process, but we feel with 15,000 units out and going through all the certifications that those have been pretty well ironed out. With that machine in the Bronx, it was one machine out of 782 that had an issue.
I understand.
Okay.
I just...
I just thought I'd kind of further
you know, lay my cards on the table. I think the AutoMark is the biggest waste of money this county has ever expended, and I don't want to debate it, and I mean, it's where we're at, but it gives me pause because we have 10 of those machines and 5 of them fail almost every election, and I go from polling place to polling place fixing them, and it was 1 out of 15,000, and you guys say you have it fixed, and I'll take your word on that, but I don't want it to be mine.
You don't want that one.
Yeah, I don't want to be that one.
Did we answer your question?
You absolutely answered my question.
The only thing I would add is, Mike referred to a memory device. This is your memory pack now. As you know, the Eagle had a pretty good sized memory pack, proprietary made. This is basically a standard USB memory device. It is an industrial professional grade. There is different qualities of these USB devices versus the ones that you might put in a MP3 player. But there is one of these in that 200 at the end of the night. That device comes out along with the tape and is read into the election reporting manager that Lori has here to accumulate results across all the cities, towns, and villages, and accumulate, you know, totals for Rock County. That process is very similar. Of course, you don't need another piece of hardware to read that pack in and out of. You just insert this device into the USB slot of your PC. Reads it, updates it in a very similar manner that the Eagle packs used to update.
And there's, by the way, there's no battery in that USB drive, unlike some of the smart cards that we use with our M100 system. This, with USB drive, doesn't have a battery to it, so there's no battery to worry about with the USB drive.
I had to buy Dave lunch so he'd ask the hard questions so I wouldn't have to, so thanks, Dave. Some of the questions that have come up in the other vendors is our IT department was asking if the flash drive fails, the election is loaded on it, it goes into the machine, you've had 25 voters come through and it fails. The current Eagles, if it fails, it fails. It says, I'm sick, I'm shutting down till you do something about it. If the flash drive fails, will it continue to record votes?
No, it will not.
So it will get sick and shut down
Right.
just like the Eagle.
Each time a ballot is processed, there's a set of counters updated on this USB stick. And if that update of those counters cannot occur, there's no more ballots that can be inserted into the unit. That's when you have to use the emergency bin until you get a replacement USB device out to the polling place,
Okay.
and then feed the ballot.
The Unisys system uses one flash drive, but the ICP that we saw earlier utilizes two cards that kind of work as a little bit of a backup. A security question arose earlier today. If these clerks are driving their fax and ballots or flash card and ballots in the same vehicle back to me at the county and something were to happen to them, God forbid, but if something happened and those items were destroyed, how would we confirm our election results? You know, how would we be able to, you know, withhold those? So I guess I'm asking, is there any other backup? Because there's no internal memory in the 200, right?
In this model, the 200, no. In the model, the 200 that works along with electionware, like we've got in New York, there is a second USB stick in the back of the machine that's put in at the warehouse, and that is the security device. That's the second redundant device in the system. Currently, that's not available on this release of the firmware. The ballots, you know, the ballots themselves are always your final record of what occurred at the polling place. And those, of course, can always be rescanned.
The other thing that this doesn't have that we've also put in a newer release, the next release that we're working on, is a landline modem. The electionware release we're working on including a cellular modem. Currently in Florida on the DS200s, they use landline modems. In Hennepin County, Minnesota, with our previous generation, they use wireless modems. And so we're looking at being able to add wireless to this in a future release as well.
Does Minnesota require federal certification?
Yes.
So how did they bypass the EAC with the modem?
Well, at the time the M100 was bought, this was back in 1998, and so the EAC was in existence. They had voting machines.
So that's on the 100 that
the
that
predecessor.
they're using.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We have, I hate to keep mentioning all these different releases. That's kind of what I do, is build new releases of current products and then also build new products to use down the line. But in Unity 3400, which is in federal cert now and very close to being finished, we do have the landline modem support in this device. And that's what we plan on taking to the GAB yet this year. So we would have landline modems available once 3400 is certified. Then the next release upgrade after that, the next major release would support the wireless as well.
Do you perceive that as being mid next year?
Probably not in Wisconsin. Yeah. Landline, yes. Yes. Wireless, I'm not sure it can be accomplished that fast. We're the first vendor to attempt to certify any type of modeming through the 2005 standard, through the EAC process. So we're kind of going, we're taking all the lumps for all the other vendors right now, but we've been doing modeming for so long, and it's such a great asset to election officials that we felt it's very important to get that back into our systems.
How favorable do you think?
The landline modeming, they look more favorable upon it. There's less sections of the standard that apply to just landline modems. As soon as we start talking wireless, there's a lot of concern about security around it. We know that we've built a secure system. All the data that is transmitted from the DS200, it's encrypted, it's digitally signed, it goes across a secure channel on the wireless side. It goes across a secure channel that also encrypts it inherently in wireless communications. It lands back on a device similar to your data acquisition manager host that then decrypts the data, checks the digital signature before we process that data. So we felt when we developed our solution, we met every section of the standard, and that is in testing right now in Huntsville, Alabama. We just happened to show it in New York City this week as well. They've got, what, 6,200 DS200s in the 5 boroughs. You can imagine the trouble they have getting information back from the polling places. In fact, the New York City uniformed officers actually do that up there. But they wanted a better solution than they have now. Although wireless is not permitted in New York under New York regulations right now, they wanted to see our solution, and when we did demo that this week, went very well, and they're doing what it's going to take to get the legislation changed to get the wireless modeming approved in New York. So they're headed that way.
One of the things that I like about the Prom Pack and the Eagle is that it's not a technology that exists out there readily. So if I've got a Prom Pack and somebody says, yeah, you tweaked the results, I can easily say, unless Gene or Rebecca or I did something, because we're the only ones with MPRs, it's pretty impossible for somebody to get their hands on this and program it up. And our IT department has asked questions of the other 2 vendors on the security of the flash drives and ability to hack and do things. Yeah. Can you speak to that?
Well, certainly there are some advantages to having a proprietary memory device. There's also a lot of disadvantages to parts obsolescence and so forth. There are, in addition to the encryption, the data is encrypted. There's checksums on here for the different areas of storage on here, and if somebody gets to it, or as hard drives, or even these type of static drives, a bit can flip. Very rare, but it can happen. If that does happen, there are checksum processes involved that catch that, and then we do not use that memory device. We do not update from it.
There's kind of a 2-stage security approach. There is a number in that USB drive, so if someone tries to take a different brand of USB drive and put it in, it won't even read it. Then we have another process, what we call a separate USB stick called EQC code, where by loading that onto the system, you have to have a USB drive that's been programmed for that system even to be read. So it's another process that we have for security on the system as well.
The other thing is, should somebody get possession of this stick and put it in a PC and look at it, the data isn't structured so that without knowing our data structures and how we store our data, you would not find candidate A number of votes on here. You could look till the cows go home. You're not going to see that because of the manner in which we store the data on this device.
So I can go buy a password protected, pretty secure flash drive, an 8 gig for $25 at Staples. what are you guys gonna ding me for on these USB drives at Es&S? Since they're
My
special.
answer is the money question, so.
You guys really scared me right there when you said a different brand, because, you know, with the flashcards for the AutoMark, I was able to use a standard brand and be able to
Part
put
of
the
going through the
code in.
certification process, we have to certify every component, even the third-party component, so it has to be a flash drive that was certified with the system for us to be able to sell it, and then we use that special industrial grade. So it seems to me an extra flash drive is in the range of $30.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah, and part of the problem, you know, 2 gig used to seem like a lot, well,
Yeah,
now
yeah.
people don't want 2 gigs,
Right.
they're not big enough, so
Right.
then there's 4, then there's 8.
Right.
But if we certify the system with a 2 and a 4 gig, even though we can support an 8, we have to go back through certification to use the 8, so it's, as you can tell, certifications aren't my favorite part of this industry.
Yeah, I think you feel.
Very
like-
necessary
I
part.
think the certification is the AutoMark in our world. The AutoMark is the compatible handicap device to this machine?
Yes, we are going to be coming out with a new system next year. That is currently in development and will be undergoing certification. And it's not a direct replacement, it's going to have a lot more different capabilities than the old AutoMark. It can also be used as an early voting system and a VOD system as well. But
Which we don't do in Wisconsin as of yet, but these are things that you want to consider
we
because I.
foresee different trends,
Right,
and that's
right.
something that we've
Yeah,
incorporated in this
absolutely.
system. And so as soon as it's available, I'll be bringing it into Wisconsin.
You know, early voting, super polls, this is something we see in a lot of states right now. And we have to build products to accommodate that.
Right.
But we also still have to support the traditional style of voting on election day too at your polling place, which I see a lot of value in, so.
Yeah. So the longevity of the 200, with these newer products coming out, we've talked about budgeting in our 2013 budget. That doesn't mean we're gonna buy. I guess as our current vendor, short of the GAB saying we're not gonna certify those Eagles anymore, so you're gonna have to trash them. How long are you guys gonna be willing to support us using the Eagle AutoMark combination that we currently use?
We're going to continue supporting the Eagle. There are certain parts that we can't get anymore,
Right.
the memory packs, for example. But we
I'm
have
hoarding,
enough
so don't worry about
inventory. We have enough inventory of the other parts to maintain at least for the foreseeable future. So, and that's one thing I gotta say as a company they've done very well is supporting old equipment, even equipment that has been purchased in. Over the years, Es&S has purchased a number of companies. They bought BRC, and I came over with that acquisition. They bought Ivotronic, which is a DRE system, and they bought Premier, the former Diebold company, and then the latest acquisition in December was ABS. And with all these different acquisitions, they've come up in unity way to support all those old products and not drop them. Other companies haven't done as well in that area in supporting old products. I think we've got an excellent track record.
What's a DRE?
That's a direct recording device. It's all electronic devices. There are jurisdictions that use those.
Does that
They
mean
kind of went
ballotless?
down in favor because people wanted a paper audit trail, and that's what people like about these tabulation systems. You always have that paper audit trail to go back to. With an all-electronic system, there was always a question, is something that changed, how would we know? By going back to the original ballot, you always have that audit trail to go back to.
Paper, for those of you that helped me in the recounts, the paper ballot was the saving grace to proving our integrity and transparency of our elections. However, I don't think that that is too far down the road to the point where we will have the technology for the elector to actually trust that we can have a direct record equipment. One of the things that I like to look at when we're making this long-term purchase is whether or not these have the capability of being a DRE device.
Well, this express vote that we're going to be releasing, it's very similar to a DRE, except it does have a a cast vote record that is generated. But
The little receipt piece, right?
actually, it's like a 4¼ inch wide thermal piece of paper, and what we're looking to do is making generic blank so they can be reused from election to election, any unused ones. And it will be activated, so as soon as the voter puts it in, it will go, they'll be able to go, a screen will come up just like the Automark and be able to vote, only it's going to be much smaller. It's not going to have a printer built in like the Automark, it's going to have that thermal printer. So it's going to eliminate a lot of the issues that we've had with the Automark.
And at the end of the voting session, after the voter confirms his votes on the screen, it then prints this 4¼ inch wide ballot facsimile. Activation card is how we refer to it, because you can also activate the ballot for the voter if it's printed out of a poll book. But it prints all the candidates that were selected in textual form for the voter, and then it also prints barcodes of each selection at the top of the card. And then that card can come out of the ADA voting device and be inserted into the DS200 and tabulated in the same device that the non-ADA voters are voting the regular ballot and inserting the regular ballot through that same DS200. So every ballot cast ends up being on a piece of paper in that system.
There's also another device that currently Wisconsin doesn't use right now, and that's a high-speed central processor. But things can change, like in Minnesota, we always process for absentees out the precinct just like you currently do. But after the 2 statewide recounts, they changed the law and now require central tabulation of all absentees. They felt that they had more consistency in doing that. And so our company developed a high-speed central processor that are used for centralized processing of absentee all-mail ballot elections. So in states like Oregon, Washington, they're looking at that, or any place that's centrally processing absentee ballots or other ballots. It's a state-of-the-art system that we've also just developed and came out with that works in conjunction with the DS200. Uses the same ballot, the same software that set up the programming down the road when if you go to election, where it will be one programming event, so you'll be able to program the DS200 and their Automarks all together.
Questions?
Yeah.
Michelle?
How many ballots can it hold?
The ballot box holds about 2,800 ballots.
Is there separate compartments?
Pardon?
Is there separate compartments?
No, with this single unit one, there isn't. We do have an optional metal to bin, one where you can outstack ballots. However, in Wisconsin, since every ballot has to be looked at to determine voter intent, we feel that the one box is probably the best solution for Wisconsin. The other thing is that when you take this off, this lid closes, it protects the unit, and there's a luggage handle that will come out so that it's easily transportable. And then the ballot box themselves, once you take out the top piece that holds the emergency bin, you can stack these like 3 or 4 high. They're nestable, in other words.
I saw you ran a regular ballot and blank one. Can you run an overvote
Sure.
so we can hear and see what that's like?
One contest has too many votes except for return. So I'm going to go ahead and hit return. Now, in Wisconsin, as I say, right now the state requires all overvoted ballots to be turned rejected. So this isn't set up right now for Wisconsin handling of overvotes. Other questions? Karen?
I need to go back to that 2 ballot thing. Are you saying this will work if you purchase a different bin?
We have a metal ballot box that we use for the M100s. And that same box can be used with the DS200s.
And
that has 2 different bins, and there's a diverter that will divert right into a separate compartment.
Then do you run into the problem with the diverter like we have with the Eagle now where it could jam more, or?
No, we've got a lot of M100s out in Wisconsin right now. Douglas County, Columbia County, City of Appleton, all use M100s. There's quite a few in Manitowoc County, up in Ashland, Beeville.
You know, I understand your comment that we have to look at them anyway, but the big difference is, you know, we're bigger in Dane, and you know, sometimes we have 5,000 ballots at place, easily. And so they'll have, you know, 2,000, well, you know, 500 write-ins already that they can get started on without going through all those ballots first. They've just saved themselves an hour or so. So I think it's very important, you know.
Yeah, we do have
yeah.
a box that you can divert ballots to. And it's been well used all over the country. Matter of fact, that's currently what Hamilton County uses right now.
Okay.
Dave, did I see you had a question?
With your flash drives, you said they were just standard. Is there any extra protection as far as for the safety of the data itself? Say electromagnetic, anything like that? Anything prevented from, if I manage to pull the thing out and I'm walking it over to Lori and I manage to stumble, juggle it, and it's a perfect shot right into her coffee cup? Is that it?
Impressive. Since I don't
Well,
drink coffee.
Depending on what she's got in her coffee cup, it would probably still work, but, yeah, like I said, these are not commodity off-the-shelf devices. These are the industrial grade. They do have different types of memory in them. The flash memory is different. That's one reason they do cost a little bit more. But I mean, it is a memory device. I cannot stand here and guarantee you that there isn't something you can figure out to do to this to make it unreadable. We have not seen that occur very often in all the thousands of units and really hundreds, if not thousands, of elections that we have run.
Do you mean, Lori, that you would let them carry a flash drive without being in a secure bag?
No, it needs to have a seal on
So this
it.
may not ever happen.
It may not ever happen. It's just in case I give it to IT to troubleshoot it.
Well, did you
Yes.
get a bag?
Can I stack an auto mark on top of this unit?
No. You can't stack an automark on top of this unit. We will, with our new express vote, be able to put an express vote and a DS200 on the same ballot box.
I do not have storage space in my polling place to keep my two machines, unless I stack one on top of the other.
Yeah,
She
she's
means
not
for
talking about
storage.
election,
For
like she's
storage.
talking
For
storage.
storage.
Can the automark case lay on top of that?
Well, let's see. This is going to be odd. There's going to be several of those nested.
Or she'll just have one?
Okay. So you really need to stack that right on top. I don't know. Possible.
Put that on top of the automark.
And then jump.
So the express vote is kind of like the new automark, is what you're telling me?
Right.
Okay, and what is the express vote gonna cost? If you can ballpark it.
I haven't even heard a price yet.
A lot less than an automark. A whole lot less. I mean, it's more of an electronic device. There's not as many moving parts. We aren't handling the ballot. We're not printing right on the physical ballot like the automark does. I know we had a price point, a cost point that we were given by senior management saying we have to be able to make these in volume, at this dollar amount. I'm sure Mike can get that number for you and get it back to you quickly.
Yeah.
And what is the DS200 running at this point? List, not that in quantities or anything.
In the proposal that I have, it's $6,040.
Does that include the ballot bin?
That included the ballot bin, a memory stick, a 1-year warranty, a modem. So I've got that price in there, but I can find out what the estimated pricing is on the express vote.
But the express vote that is not a tabulator.
No.
It's just
It
it
doesn't
does the
tabulate.
same thing as what the
It's
automark
a
does.
voting device. It's not a tabulator, which separates it from a DRE. The direct record electronic really is a tabulator because It's processing the ballot and storing the votes that were harvested off of that ballot. The express vote, we were very careful not to make it DRE, because that's something else the EAC is not real fond of these days, is DRE. So, yeah, it's not a DRE.
So it basically just does everything that the Automark does
Yeah,
now
it
as
generates,
far as
yeah, it doesn't require the actual ballot. It's a generic 4 1/4 inch paper stock. Yeah.
But that's handicapped accessible with the braille and the.
It's got all the different
whole
types,
everything.
yeah, the straw, everything, yeah.
And is that what you're
Audio.
saying costs $6,400?
No, the DS200 is 6,000.
So this is what you're saying?
That is a 6,000. If we were to replace Automarks down the road with their new handicapped accessible machine, we're gonna need to get a price point on that. Since everybody's so fond of the Automarks, I'm trying to think ahead in that, you know, where do we go from here? Because, you know, those have a lifespan too. So if we are looking at a 20-year investment or a 10-year investment, we wanna, you know, make sure that they're speaking to each other. Mike, did you include PM in the quote?
Yes, I did.
And what is the annual PM on the 200?
The silver maintenance is $125 per unit per year.
What's your maintenance cost?
And what does
What
that
about
include?
if that had a different bin or section?
The metal bin, I think that would be about the same price as this bin.
Are you guys interested in getting up and touching it and talking
No.
about it for a little bit?
What if you lose your power?
Oh, there's a backup battery, a lithium-ion battery backup to the unit that will last up to 2 hours continuous use.
And then how many?
And that's included in the price as well. There's
And
not
then-
a separate price on it.
How often does that have to be charged?
How often that?
Have to be charged? Oh, it's a,
They recommend on recharging that every 6 months, but the nice thing about it, if you forget, the moment you plug it in on election day, you plug your machine, it starts to recharge the battery.
There is a cycle on those lithiums though, and that's why I don't know if it was Lee or Rob that had said cycling it monthly. Similar to a cell phone, you know, if you're just plugging it in when it gets down to 50%, you start to tear down on the battery. And so if we're just plugging it in February and April in a 2-election year and you don't cycle that up once in a while, you could actually be putting wear and tear on that lithium battery. So they were saying cycling, it's best on the battery if you cycle it once a month, but 6 months I can see where that we just wouldn't want to go from April to February.
No, I've heard what all the manuals I've read, they've recommended every 6 months to recycle the battery.
Do you guys want to get up and try it, and then we'll reconvene at a little after 2:30 and ask the rest of our questions?
Well, Lori had asked if we put a WebEx demonstration together for some of the IT folks and a couple of the other people of the new electionware software, so we'll get that going here.
You know, one of the complaints on the previous vendors today was this alarm that, hey, the voter screwed up, don't let them leave. I think that's what you guys equate that to. Is, hey, the voter screwed up, stop them. And we were, you know, with the other ones, by the time you realize there was an error, you know, the voter could be in their car, and you know, or the screen is flat and doesn't flash big warnings that your ballot may not have been accepted. So I got lots of people shaking their heads. Yeah, I like the beep, beep, beep. Rebecca.
The other thing is, the other two people who were here, didn't they say that either it was a federal or state law that they could no longer differentiate the two ballots? That's why they said it didn't make noise?
I believe I did hear Chad say that.
Yeah, so why can
Didn't
this
make
one make
noise.
noise and differentiate between a ballot that's overvoted or cross-voted and essentially pointing out, identifying that voter as
Rejecting a ballot.
having screwed up or, you know, that they were gonna reject their ballot. That's what they were saying that you couldn't.
No,
that
it's
they
a
couldn't
matter of
do
fact, I know the DS200 used in Lincoln, Wood, and Portage County all have beeps on them, and they are all certified by the GAB, so I'm not quite sure what they're talking about. The
So this
Eagles
is-
have it, our M100s have it, and now the DS200 has it.
But even if it didn't have as much of a beep, it's got that screen looking right at you,
Oh, I mean,
and that's gonna say, hello, you voted, or no, you didn't, you know, so it's something more to catch.
Except my other bad thing about that is, you think you'll have to pay a lot more attention about where voters are. I mean, you know, you stand right behind the guy in front of you to put your ballot in,
Oh.
because it's just gonna come up on that tape. I mean, the person behind is now going to see that, so there's gonna have to be changes of where, yep. You know, maybe they
I've
have to
seen
stand
some
in the
people put
corner.
a tape, like a line of tape on the
Yep.
front and ask them to stay behind that tape.
I think one of the problems though is some of you don't realize how small our voting areas are.
Some of their voting areas, Mike, are literally where you and Gary are standing for their entire municipality.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of different polling places like
There's
that.
no, I mean, Sherry doesn't have room.
Put it in a booth with a curtain.
Any other questions for them? We have 15 minutes if. Mike did a really good job explaining the equipment efficiently. There's product sheets for them to take back
Oh,
with them.
yes.
Mike, would you have prices then for election wear that you could get for like the county clerks? Because I imagine that will have to be a cost to upgrade that. It'd be nice if it was thrown in with the machines, but.
Well, you said the AutoMark adjustments would be free.
Right,
adjustments
but
that-
you have to have the software for us to use.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll check with election work. Unity 3400 would be
That's continuing.
doing that no additional charge.
Okay.
How many
But I
of
don't have
you?
any pricing yet on election work.
How many of you are interested in the concept of the county? Now, don't get excited. This is an idea, not of the county making the initial purchase in your township over the next year or two, paying back the county, or just going forward and buying your own equipment.
Or just letting the county buy them all.
Yeah.
What do we do with the Eagles?
Yeah.
Well,
$500 rebate.
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that is probably the best gig in town is selling them back and putting it towards new equipment. What I would like to do, the latest, here's what I'm thinking is, we may have to buy mid-213. That's the soonest we're looking at things, mid-213, spending some time getting accustomed, running some mock elections, doing some auditing so that we can implement 14. We don't have to, and we can keep these Eagles another year. Can you all just rebudget the following year? So, we'll say, all right, maybe we need to do this mid-14 so that we can do something in 15. If the Eagles, and unless anybody just strongly objects to this, I would rather limp along with the Eagles as best we can because the Eagles are the solid product and let their technology grow ahead.
They've got a lot of stuff out there.
They've got a lot of stuff that's sitting on the edge, and the GAB has not decided to build camp yet. So as soon as they build camps, they're going to start making decisions. I wanted to have today so that we could get everybody on the same understanding that I think we need to be budgeting every year until we make this leap, until we, and I think finance departments would appreciate that. I think, gosh, we don't spend it this year. Woo!
Lori?
Yeah.
I have a question though.
Yeah.
When we're thinking about budgeting, are you leaning toward us replacing the AutoMark at this time?
It depends upon which vendor. If we went with the DS200, there'd be no reason why we couldn't continue on with the AutoMark, and then when that lifespan decides it's done.
Because I mean, maybe $3,000-4,000 to one municipality may not be much.
No,
but
Devonna,
it's a lot.
$2,000-3,000 to every municipality in this county right now is a lot of money.
That's our road money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Then we make a final decision on which one we would go with.
Well, that's something I'm uncertain about. I want to do the software with the 3 vendors so that I can get my IT department's feedback. I'd like to get a little bit of information from Maribeth at the EAC and see if I can pick her brain a little bit. The GAB is just giving me nothing right now. I mean, I ticked off Diane last week, and so that didn't help, but they're just giving me nothing on timelines. It's not, so I don't know. What are you guys thinking? after today, after you've had all of this, what are you guys thinking about when we're supposed to jump? Or when not to jump?
Yeah, I was talking with Karen before, and like she said, you like certain things about every one of the machines, so.
Yeah,
I think she's thinking more time.
yeah.
I think time-wise, I mean, it makes sense to do 13 after the 2 elections or 15 after the 2 elections.
Yeah.
If we can keep the Eagles until the 2 elections in 15 and start fresh in 16 with the new equipment, then that gives us the same that it is in 13, the last 6 months of the year, to train our poll workers, do public tests, do all sorts of,
Do every scenario under the sun.
right?
Well, which means you're gonna have to budget this year with the caveat that we don't know if, they've said, hey, we'll continue to service them. The S&S has, they said it, and I got it on tape, right, guys? That you're not gonna dump us on our Eagles if we hang in there a little bit longer. One thing I will tell you that I haven't said, but I've pounded on my whole first term. I've said this monopoly is just the most ridiculous thing, and here's what I don't like. What I don't like is that I've got a $27,000 software license on a bunch of software that's really, really old, and it's just.
It should be paying us at this point.
Well, I don't know about that, but when I do call software support, I tell Larry, hey Larry, this is Lori, this is me calling in on my $27,000 call. I expect rich service here, because it is. So if I'm only using an hour or 2 of telephone time a year on not a 6th election year, Larry's been a very good friend of mine this year actually, should there not be some sort of a reward? You don't have to give me money, but give me some of that money back. And you know what Mike did? He says, all right, I think we built back almost $5,000, which is almost 1 unit. And when you look at the cost to program this year, if the county had Command Central, and that was the only one I went out and got a quote from because I knew what Es&S was, if the county had Command Central program all 6 elections this year, it would have cost the county $110,000. So I proved my worth a couple times. So that's not a cheap feat. And so when I started pounding on Mike and he says, yeah, okay, we're going to do this, I know that he had to climb uphill because they're putting a ton of money as kind of the big dog. I don't know. I guess they're probably the Charter cable in the whole thing of it all. I don't know, who's bigger than Charter? You're bigger than Charter. But they have to, because they're bigger than Charter, they have to put a lot of money in the recertification process because they kind of have to lead the charge, and that takes money too. So we get it, and I appreciate that you went to bat for us, but that is one thing that, in these maintenance fees and these things that I appreciate that you're holding the line on, because you could easily say, we're just not going to service it anymore and stick it to us, but then we wouldn't be your customer. So, that we understand. Exactly. So I do appreciate that you have been there. And do you guys have any more questions before I kick them out and we do our wrap up? Yeah, Judy.
So will we be getting an update of software, do you think?
No, there is no update of software for the Eagles. What we got is what we will have until the end.
Even as old as it is?
Yep, and yeah, I mean, I have thrown every threat that I can throw. I even do the whole thing. If you guys get rid of Page, you get rid of Rock County. Yeah, it doesn't. So just don't get rid of Page. Just don't get rid of Page.
She's a sweetheart.
Yeah. So no, as long as we're there, and I can deal with it, knowing that that when I buy a new piece of equipment, I'm not getting the same old software. I can live with that, but. It's not exactly easy. Our webmaster has just done wonders with
we had a choice, 3 or 4 years ago, keep building on the Unity platform, put the new devices in it, improve it, and so forth. But we decided to do the right thing, which was start over. I mean, we absolutely started over, clean sheet of paper, started building a new election management system from scratch. It's not burdened by all of the great number of devices that it now supports, many, most of which you don't have, but like Mike said, like Es&S is a conglomeration of a lot of companies that have merged over the years, and Unity software had to support all of those devices in invented by different engineers over different time frames. So that's some of the reason Unity is kind of like it is. But we decided, let's start over, let's do it right. It's a huge investment. I mean, millions of dollars of development cost and certification cost to get there. But we recognize to really say we are the leader in the marketplace, not only with the tabulators, but with the software. We had to start over, we had to build something new and make it really great. And I think you'll see that when we do our WebEx demonstration. I mean, it's night and day. You know, it's all new. It's great, really, really good stuff.
All right, well, we're gonna kick you out and do our wrap up so I can get any additional questions.
I'm
I
making
would
those.
love to keep those for the clerks that weren't here, so I don't know.
I had over 55
Okay,
originally. So.
okay. Well, and you guys might want more than one, so. Anybody need more than one? Rebecca, did you need? Sure. You wanna take an extra? I've got like 10 clerks that aren't here, so.
I've got 3 points of precinct already.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Because I don't need mine. Oh, I got extra. Yeah. Will you give one to Diana? We talked about this last week on where it's supposed to go, and we're not putting it in the software budget, but.
So I don't know, he's gonna go through more, because the other, they said they're right in there. Well, what I mean, if we go with the buyer, did he say that? I think she said.
Yes, yes,
Probably.
yes.
It's toolers now, you're.
Keep reminding me.
Yeah, because
It doesn't feel that fuzzy, does it?
No. Well, then you're fine. Every day I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Because every time we install, we get it.
Yeah, and you gotta go back and start over.
Well,
Okay,
just
all right.
Stay for the wrap up or?
I'm glad I got a penny
So did you say you were gonna type up uniform instructions?
No.
Oh, God, is there such problems?
I didn't see
All
it.
the stuff is out there.
Well, that's right, you don't.